The Nashville Predators have run off 3 straight wins after losing 5 in a row to start the season. Have they righted the ship? And is Steven Stamkos ready for his return to Tampa Bay? We've got all that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host of Locked On Predators, Ann Kimmel. And let me ask you this. Have you been able to figure out this very schizophrenic Nashville Predators team, losing 5 in a row to start the season and now winning 3 in a row? Let's start with this. What's the biggest difference in the last 3 games?
That's such a great question because it took us a while to figure out what in the world was wrong in those first 5 games. But I think part of it is the communication has improved. I think that they're starting to connect a little bit better. They, of course, added some big pieces in the offseason, and we knew that it would take a while for those new players to get up to speed with the system and kind of learn and unlearn what they needed to be effective under Andrew Brunette. I think what surprised everybody, especially in those first 5 games, is that the team that has been here and had success with Andrew Brunette last year under the system struggled to effectively play that system in the first 5 games. And so I think you're seeing the team that knows what to do finally executing a little bit better than they did in those first 5 games.
What was the biggest thing that the team seemed to be having difficulty with?
There were a couple of things that really turned it into a perfect storm to start the season. I think one of the things very unconsciously is that the team almost unconsciously deferred to players like Steven Stamkos and sort of wanted him to get started and sort of carry the offense. And it's going to take time for Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault to get to a point where it's more reflexive what they need to do under Andrew Brunette. So I think that there was some unconscious deferring going on. They were trying to show that they were a highly skilled team instead of just putting their heads down and doing the work they needed to do to be effective. Also saw some of the players that were really good offensive performers last year struggle early. The top line of Philip Forsberg, Ryan O'Reilly, and Gus Nyquist really hasn't gelled quite as well to begin this season as they had been playing last season. So a bunch of little things really created a perfect storm where Nashville couldn't get out of their own way. And that ended up in an 0-5 start.
So here you are, 3 straight wins. Looks like things are stabilizing at the very least. But what's up with Steven Stamkos? Just 1 goal in 8 games. He's a -7 plus-minus. Do you think this is just an adjustment period, or is there something going on that we're not aware of?
I really think this is just an adjustment period. On the Locked On Predators podcast, we always like to remind our listeners, not only is he learning all of this new on the ice, a new system, he's playing with new teammates, different timing. He is also off ice, still trying to find the ketchup at Trader Joe's. Everything is different. And so we like to joke and say, look, he's still trying to find the ketchup on ice as well. The timing is very different, the way that Nashville has been playing at the beginning of the season and the pace at which Steven Stamkos is used to getting the puck, especially on that power play. So I think that there are growing pains, and it's not just Steven Stamkos that has to adjust. I think Nashville players are also figuring out the changes they need to make to be effective line mates with him as well.
Now the Predators' next game in Tampa, the big homecoming for Steven Stamkos. Talk to me about what this is going to mean for him and how badly does he want to have a good game?
I was just talking about this today with somebody from Tampa Bay, and it's going to be a really interesting night. I think it's going to be a very emotional night. here's the upside of Steven Stamkos. He is such a professional. And while this is going to be a big emotional night for him for sure, I think he's going to be very focused on trying to play well back at Amalie Arena in front of all of these fans who really love him and want to see him succeed, even if he's not in a Tampa Bay Lightning jersey. I think it's going to be high emotion. I think that the rest of the team is going to need to be very steady for him. I know this Nashville Predators locker room really likes Steven Stamkos. And so they're going to want to do everything they can to get him a win in front of the Tampa Bay crowd. So it's going to be up to, I think, the Predators team to really work hard and get that win. Andrew Brunette had an interesting comment when he was asked about the game. And he said, it's probably going to be best for all parties involved to get it over with. Instead of having this date looming over them and the emotions, kind of hanging over not just Steven Stamkos, but also the fan base and the players in Tampa Bay, I think it's going to be good to get to this game. He deserves all of the credit, all of the kudos, all of the adulation he is going to get. But I think it'll be good for everybody to sort of close this chapter.
Yeah, and we'll see how all of that goes. Are you concerned right now about the backup goaltending, Scott Wedgewood? Yeah, only 2 games, small sample size, but a couple of shaky performances.
He did not have a great preseason, and I think that really concerned a lot of people, but it's very hard to gauge what the preseason means when you're looking at an 82-game regular season. I don't think it's time to worry about Scott Wedgewood. He had a really good performance against the Columbus Blue Jackets in their second win this weekend at the back-to-back, and that was really important. The goals that he did give up, there were some defensive breakdowns in front of him, and so his stats take the hit, but I think it was maybe more the play in front of him. He has talked about the fact that this is an adjustment too. This is a different defensive system that is in front of him. So he isn't yet able to just anticipate automatically what the defense is going to do in front of him. So it is another one of those players that's going to take time. And when you're a backup goaltender, the time doesn't come as often as you want. So he's trying to really lock it down in practices. And the more we see him in game situations, I really feel confident that he is going to continue to improve.
One thing that doesn't always get a lot of attention, but that the Preds are doing very well so far this season is the penalty kill. More than 93% success rate, second in the league. Talk to me about what's made the penalty kill effective, and there's even a shorty in there too.
Yeah, this has been one of the bright spots in a really tough start to the season. This is a completely different penalty kill system. Dan Heinold, who used to run the penalty kill, is no longer with the Predators. This is a completely different system. And so we've had a chance to sit down and talk to some of the players. And the way that they describe it, just in layman's terms, that this is much more aggressive. This is much more skating. This isn't just protecting kind of that high quality ice. The object of this particular penalty kill system is to interrupt passes. It's to cause fumbled pucks. It's to be able to clear the puck quicker and not even let shots get off. So I think you're seeing Nashville being really successful at it. Of course, they've had a lot of practice. They've been in the box an awful lot, and they've got to stop doing that. But I think that is one area where the team really has a lot of confidence. This penalty kill has been so successful, and against players who are usually very good on the power play. So this is one of those things where you're hoping maybe the momentum from that area of special teams can carry over and kind of boost the 5-on-5 play.
And the power play also needs a little bit of work as of right now.
Yeah. Yes. And hopefully it's going to come down to that Steven Stamkos timing. If they can get the puck to him in a way that he is used to, I think you're going to see Steven Stamkos kind of blossom back again on the power play for Nashville.
So do you think this team has figured it out and we now go from here, or are we still going to see some inconsistency from here forward?
I don't think they've figured it out yet. And that comes down to something as simple as the line combinations. We saw 2 very different starting lineups in a back-to-back situation. I'm not sure Andrew Brunette knows for sure what the right combinations of these lines are. So there's still a lot of growing that this team needs to do. What I think has improved is the understanding of what it's going to take to win these games. And I also think the locker room has grown through the adversity. At one point, Jonathan Marchessault referred to the team as a little bit fragile. And I think battling back, especially in their last 2 games where they were down 2 goals to start the games, and being able to find ways to win. I think the confidence is slowly growing, but there's still a lot they need to iron out in Nashville to be the contender that a lot of people predicted they would be.
All right, and I know you'll have your finger on the pulse every step of the way. Why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you and your co-host on social media?
You can find the podcast on YouTube or your favorite podcasting platforms. You can find us on social media at LO_Predators. I am on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. And my co-host, Emma Lingen, is on social media at Emma_Lingen as well.
All right, Ann, thanks so much. Always great talking hockey with you.
Yep. Thanks, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Again, you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League.